Hello, and welcome back to our series where we are building this people and culture management system. We're currently working on our compensation dashboard and particularly finishing up our market data. So we have our market data that produces our company pay, and we worked on populating not only our data for our drop downs here, but also whatever that market value is for that specific job. So you see we have all jobs here, it's nothing. Now, this series is brought to you by Prairie HR Solutions. My name is Jake Finger, Principal Consultant here at Prairie HR Solutions. And in this video, what I would like to do is now finish out building the logic for these two drop-down boxes and this calculate button. I did a little bit of work, basic work. I didn't think anybody really wanted to watch me do it because we've done it so many times. But I'll bring you up to speed on what it is that I did. Currently, where we have is if we were to select something that we know exists in our data, like this human resource general list, this populates, it populates here in the job title along with the regurgitation of our base pay and our average experience. And then it goes and grabs this from our market data and then populates and calculates the average 10th, 25th median and all that. So now what I would like to do is have the user select areas or comparable jobs so they can view things or compare it laterally and vertically. And now that I'm looking at it, we probably don't need these. If you want to create a visualization, definitely can. I honestly think I'm going to get rid of these just because you can see here the numbers aligned. And if you're going this in depth with the market pay, then you can definitely just see it from here. If you wanted a visualization, then you can continue on the logic that we're already building. But I think personally for our basic and generic analysis, I'm just gonna get rid of these and axe them. Okay, so let's jump over and see what it is that I did and where it is that we are. So the first thing that I did was that button, that calculate button, needed a trigger and a function to run. So what I've done was I came over to that button here. Let's find that button. And I created a function for that thing to run. I didn't want this function to change anything else on the page except for those 4 lines. So I created its own function, and this own function is down here. So we can get rid of this alert. We don't need it. So you'll notice that this function consists of 3 values. So we have a market area value, a job filter value, and a job value. So this job value is obviously the one that gets regurgitated from up above. The filter is the drop down, and the area is the drop down. So now that we have those 3 values, we can pass it as an argument to our Google Apps script side. And then once that returns, and we can send it to that same one that is doing all of our filtering, we just need to build in some logic for it. And then once that returns and gets done with it, it can get sent up here to populate because that's really the same exact thing that we're doing. Now you notice that we had a lot of different, this looked a little bit different. And what we did was we were going into the data, selecting one by one the 0, 1, 2, 3 indexes, whatever matched, and then populating it to that ID. Now, under the premise that if you are doing it over and over and over, chances are you can actually consolidate it down significantly, and that's what this is. We've done this before a few times, actually. So really all I did was took that same concept and made an array with all of our IDs that we're going to place, and then the indexes align with this returned data array. And then you can just simply run a for each on that, grab each ID and that index, and then populate it with the value of that data at that appropriate index. So I was able to take that whole list and just consolidate it down to that. And in this way, if we were needing to add on more, like maybe we were going to do for that market, we were going to add another box in there that says, average or mean salary for that class, we can simply add that on, here, and then also on the Google Apps Script side. Okay, so let's also think about, we did this here, but this is not the only place that we are calling this function and returning this data. We're also doing that once the page initially refreshes or is populated. Once that DOM content is loaded, we populate that. So that exists in our head of our HTML. So when we come up here and find that area, here we go, you'll see that we're also running that same exact thing here. So we need to ensure that it has 3 arguments as well. And when we're creating that default value, we want to make sure that the areas is being passed as all areas. Then we can pass the job title value as whatever that job title value is. And then this is the default value for that other box, because these 2 drop-down boxes, when we refresh, aren't going to have any data in it. Now, on the flip side, if you remember how we were doing the filtering piece, we were having to reset all those boxes. And that is what this right here is. So if we select a job classification to populate our entire compensation page, that chart, we want to reset these filters. We don't want them hanging out with old data. We just want to reset them. And that's what these are. So I'm hoping that if you have no idea what I'm talking about, please go back and watch those previous videos, because I kind of am skipping ahead from just typing the same thing the same way that we did it before, just to clean it up. So I'm hoping that this makes sense. If not, I'm hoping that you're just pausing the video here and just copying this down, because that's what this here is doing, just simply clearing it. And since we are passing 3 arguments now, we need to ensure that our analytics side over here also has 3. Now, you'll remember that when we were working with our other filters, I believe we had 6 filters up top of that page, and we were writing these massive if statements. And these massive if statements looked like this. So what I began doing was I started typing these if statements and thinking of all the situations and pieces that need to exist in order for us to make this thing work and cover all the situations that may occur with these 3 different input, 2 selects and 1 market. So this first one is if everything equals all, we just want to simply return the data, which will give us 0. And then what we need to do now is think about, okay, well, if this market area select box doesn't equal all areas, but this equals all areas, then we need to do something else, and so on and so on. So what I've done was I've written that out, and the purpose of this video is not necessarily to do this again, but rather show you what we have and then show you how to consolidate this sort of thing to where we don't have to do it with this massive if statement that just goes on and on. So what I have here is I wrote this out for every scenario that we could possibly do. And this is what it looks like. So let me grab it. I put it over here in a document because it's not going to last long. Because once you see what actually this turns into, you'll realize that it's nearly, yep, here we go. It is nearly, it's not manageable. It's hard to follow along. I mean, we have these console logs just to push it and all that. But regardless of that, we have so many different scenarios populating kind of the same thing. Let's pick one here. Let's say if the market area select drop-down box has a selection, and the market area drop-down box or the market job has a selection, as well as the comparative or the comparable job has a selection, then we want to filter it, and then we want to filter it again, and then we want to run all this data and create our array to return to our function. And then if it's this, then we want to do kind of the same thing, just a little bit different, and then this. So you'll see that this is a substantial amount of code. And for the most part, it is actually redundant. I mean, we're doing the same thing over and over and over, and trying to read this like a book is very difficult. So the purpose of this video is, if you want to keep this, by all means you can. However, this gives me personally some strife, because when I want to adapt or scale something, I don't want to have to go through and say, okay, if this is this, this is this, and this is this, then I want to do all this except just a little bit different. I don't want to do that. So I want to keep it as simple as possible. And how we're going to keep it as simple as possible is we are going to use what's called a ternary operator, which is a conditional operator, and it looks a little something like, it has these and this shouldn't be new to you, because we've done this prior. And we've done this when we were building out our compensation, but I want to revisit it because we've done quite a few if statements that have been carried out like this. And a lot of these conditions can be kind of condensed down. So let's actually just take this and let's push this down here. And what we're going to do is we are going to keep this, obviously, because we need this. But what we're going to need now is we're going to need to determine which job filter to actually apply. So let me create a comment here. And we'll say determine which job filter to apply. And that's going to be coming from up here. Now this is going to be where our logic statements come in. So we can create a variable, and let's just create this variable. Let's say job filter key. And what this job filter key is going to be is, let's look at this comparable job. Say market comparable job does not equal all comparable jobs, which means it's filled, right? It means that there's a selection there. And then I'm going to do our question mark. And let me finish typing this out, and then we'll walk through it. Comparable job. And then this would be our market job. And the key to this is to kind of walk through your head and visualize the situation and the condition of what's actually occurring. Like I said, once I get done typing this out, I will, there we go. Market, that will be market job is, just say null. Okay, awesome. So what in the world did I just do? So what I've done was I created a variable, and this variable essentially takes a lot of this if statement and consolidates it down. So what this looks like, let me type out what this actually looks like. So let me type this out for you so you don't have to watch me type. Okay, there we go. So what this line here actually looks like logically and operationally is this. So we're taking a job key and we're putting it as an empty variable, and then we're writing an if else statement. So if this market job does not equal jobs, which is right here, then we want to do a function, and that is going to set this job filter key to the market job comparable. And that is what this does. And then we need to write an else. So what that's saying is it's checking to see if it's not a comparable job, if it's filled. And then if it has something in it other than this non-comparable jobs, then it sets this job filter key variable to that value. And then we have this else piece that looks at our market job, and if our market job doesn't end or doesn't have all else, it has something in it, then it's going to take that job filter key and set it to market jobs, which is right there. So you can think of this as being an else, and that is being the curly brackets. And then else, of course, we just want to return null. So in one line, we can take up this entire thing. This would be the condition that, this would be what it is we want to do if this condition is true. And then this is the else. So there's that. Now what we need to do is figure out, we need to filter that data essentially based on this criteria. So let's create another variable here. What I'll do is I'll create a comment here just in case you're copying it down so you can come back and remind yourself what's going on. Filter data based on the job criteria, because that is really what this key is. It's the job criteria, job criteria, job criteria. Alrighty, so let's create another variable here, and we'll create this variable. We'll call this filtered data. And this filtered data, we're going to use this same little shorthand here. We're going to take this job filter key and we're going to do our little question mark here because we want it to run something. We're going to do our market data dot filter, and now you're going to see this, which is right here, because we're not looking at all this right now. We're focusing, we are now collecting this piece. And what we're going to filter is essentially our row, arrow function, row at a specific index. And that index we're going to run if it is equal to whatever our job filter key is. So this index needs to be what our job is. Now, if you think about it, we have two different jobs here. And we took care of this. So if it's not, if this market job, which is the regurgitation of the job above, doesn't have all jobs, then we want to return null. We don't want it to do anything. And this way we're able to say, if this has a selection, which is the drop-down box, then we want to ignore this. We want to focus on that. So what we want to pass through, what we're wanting to pass through as an index is whatever, because remember, this is the same exact index. Our market job and our comparable job is the same exact index, and that's 7. So that's what the index is that we need to pass through there in order to get any situation dealing with a job. I hope that makes sense. And since we're using this, this structure here, we need to give it an else. And that else is simply just going to be our market data, which is this. Just going to return it. As the filtered data. So now we took care of that job, this market comparable job thing. So now we need to think about, it's stored in a job filter key. So now we need to think about the area, because we have that second box that we need to think about. So now if we have to think of either that box is filled or it's not filled. If it's filled, we want to apply it and further filter it down like we were doing. Let's come down here and say right here, we want to further filter this market data down by that, here we go, the better example, by this market area. So to do that, let me write a comment here. We'll say further filter by area if area has a selection like that. And we're going to need to obviously create, well, actually we can just write an if statement here, but it's only going to be one if statement, not a massive one, because what we're going to need to check is if this market area, which is coming to us up here as an argument, does not equal all areas, then we can simply, oh, that's not right. There we go. Then we can take our filter data which is this, and then we can filter it further by that area. Say filtered data dot filter, and then that is going to be this piece. Row, arrow, row, and that's going to be our index 3, and that is going to occur, or what we're going to be checking with that is our market area. So you can see we just grabbed this and put it in, where is it? Right there. Well, in that, and then that should be that. Okay, good. So now we need to do something with our percentiles. So we have our 10%, 25, 75, 90, whatever. So let's now come down here and create ourselves a constant. Let's just say extract percentile. See, what are we trying to do here? We're trying to find the averages. So we want to extract the values and find average. So instead of having to pass this every single time and just really slow down this poor little average thing, 5 times in one condition, we can just kind of consolidate that into one, or as minimal as possible. So to do that, well, let's create a constant, and we can take our percentiles and our percentiles are going to be based. Now, it's not going to be our percentiles as we're thinking. It's not 10, 25, whatever. It is these here, 20, 21, 23, 24, because that's eventually what it is. Those are the indexes that we're trying to grab. So don't think of, maybe we shouldn't put this as percentiles. Maybe we should put this as percentile indices would be a better way to put it. So these indices are going to be 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. And these correspond to the percentiles in the data array. Okay, good. So there we go. So we got this. We got the market area taken care of. We got the comparable and the market job taken care of. We stored them in variables. So now what we can do is simply make a result happen. And the result is going to need to be our maps and our calculate average. So let's create a variable called results. And this results really isn't going to change within this other than being updated. And this is going to be percentile indices. And we're going to take that and we're going to map each one of these to the index. And we'll just call it index instead of row because it's not really a row. Now it's more of an index. So it's going to look like map index and this is going to be that, but let me put in that so I don't forget it. And for every index, we are going to want to run the average. Because remember, all of our data is already in these variables. We're going to run an average. So we're going to calculate average. Now what we're going to pass through here isn't necessarily a single value because we have to map the rows by the index. We need to give it something to calculate. And that something is going to be whatever this filtered data is. So this is, let's put the key data we want to work with. So what we're going to have to do here is we don't have an array yet. We have to map this filtered data by the row of our index of this. 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So what we'll do is we will take our filtered data, map it, and we are going to map it. This time we're going to map every single row, which you'll see. We're replacing it right here. And that row, we don't know the row because it's constantly changing, but we do have it in our index, which is right here. Which is our outer piece here. Okay, and then we should end that. Okay, so that's stored. So now we just need to return that. Return results. Now let's make sure, let's console this out just to troubleshoot it if it's not working. So now what we can do is we can take all of this and just delete it. Just get rid of it. So now we took all of that and put it in this. And it is exactly the same thing, except we're not just doing it over and over. We're storing it into an array first, changing that if needed, and then we're creating an array of our indices and then mapping a map of that to send over to our calculating averages. So it's a map within a map. It's an embedded map. Okay, so let's save this. Enough yammering. Let's save this and see what happens. Come over here and refresh this. So that should take care of all of our situations that we have. So we have a new open screen, NaN. That's because it's not a number, which is fine. And that's because nothing's passing down through here to our market. So let's come up here and select something that we know we have. We have human resources generalist. Okay. And now it's populating. And this is our average for our human resources generalist, if we remember correctly. So that's good. So now let's check our area. Let's just pick, I don't know, Dane County, calculate. So now it's running through that line of logic that we had. It's populating 47,430. I'm just going to jump over here and see if that's what that is. 47,430. Good. And now let's pick a different job. Now, when we pick a different job, I'm going to pick managers. This should update with managers in Dane County, obviously, but this should not change. Calculate. I'll go over here and check to make sure that, yep, that is correct. And then if we come up here and hit all areas, this should change to all human resources managers, not just in Dane County. And it does. Looks like Dane County, the median of Dane County is higher than the state average, which makes sense because that's, capital city, all that. Okay, good. Good. Now, the last thing that we need to check is if we change this to say, I don't know, developer, it should block these out. All areas, all comparable jobs, developer, and then it changes it. And the reason why it's 0 is because developer doesn't exist within our data, so we'll have to clean up our data. But good. So I think with that, once I get done taking these out, because like I said, I don't think we have a need for these. I think visually we can look at, okay, so this NaN means that there's an S inside of our data. If they don't have data for it, they'll mark it as an S. So we really got to go back in there, and I'll do that later, is clean up that data to make sure this aligns to where it functionally makes sense. But I'm going to get rid of these. We don't really need these as visualizations. And then I believe that should be it for our compensation dashboard. Now, there are some things that if you chose to do this for your organization, you absolutely can. You could make it a little bit easier to help the user, particularly if a user selected an employee number. Then the employee number thing, this populates, obviously, and you can have that job title regurgitate here. We've done that numerous times, gone into a spreadsheet, pulled it out, filtered it, did an index of whatever it is, and have that populate here and then run that. I think you have enough code where if you wanted to do that, you could. But for the basic level of a compensation dashboard, I think we have it done. Good. So we're also putting together a video on how to actually run and conduct a compensation study. We're going to do it both internally. Say somebody just comes up and says, I want you to run a compensation analysis on all of our accounts to check disparities for, say, gender. You can do that. But then also, this comes in incredibly handy if you are doing a salary analysis based on a new hire. So let's just pick, let's pick human resources manager. And, okay, bad example. We do have a perfect correlation. It's just in the wrong direction. Obviously, our correlation is that we pay less based on experience. So being randomized data is what it is. But just say that you had somebody come in here with 2.5 years of experience for the same job level. You can use this to pick where it is that they should be. And obviously, this wouldn't. Well, I don't know. Maybe that's the company's philosophy. We just pay less on experience. Good luck with that. But the idea is you could come in here and actually use this to find a equitable salary. We'll take a better one. Finance specialist. You have a finance specialist that you're hiring, and it's been determined that they have 14 years of experience. An equitable piece, if your company so chose, would be this line of best fit. And of course, a further salary would say that you probably need to move some of these people up a little bit. But we're putting that together. So I hope to, if that interests you, I hope to see you over there in that video. And the next piece that we are going to work on here in our PCM is going to be our career pathing piece. That is going to be the next largest. I think compensation is going to be the largest, but that career pathing is simply just going over finding a value and then populating the rest of the cells over. It's really the bulk of it is just positioning your data on that spreadsheet to regurgitate onto that HTML. So we'll start doing that in the upcoming videos. And if these videos have been helpful and you find them informative, please hit that subscribe button. Let us know to keep continuing producing them as we're building this tool here. And if you do have a question over something that we did, please feel free to send us an email, or if you have a suggestion on, hey, how would you do this? How would you create that? Or how any HR related question that you would like a video on, send us an email as well. We'll see what we can do. And until next time, please take care.